Welcome, listener. You have found Women, Land, and Food. I'm Karen Brightly, and this is season 1 of a new podcast, sharing conversations I've had with women who have close connections to the land that sources every bite of food we eat every day of our lives. My hope for Women, Land, and Food is that these women's experiences hit your heart like bursts of energy the way they did mine. That's what happened to me as I dug into this idealized place called Vermont and started following my dream of owning and stewarding land and met our season 1 guests. Digging together into these women's stories, their hard work, their unique perspectives, and their rooted lives, we reconnect these two realities, food and land, and it turns out that really matters. And it's too good not to share. We hope it mirrors some stirring quest in your lives, too, and offers energy and inspiration to make some bite-sized change. Like, did you know that we, you, me, and all our sisters, control 93% of all the food dollars spent in this country? Turns out we have another superpower to save the world 3 times a day through stuff we already do: shopping, cooking, and eating. And then we hope that the podcast delivers some shared moments of peace and vibrancy, connecting with women whose grounded lives help us get more from this survival exercise we call eating. Their perspectives refresh our awareness that we're here to be fully nourished and to figure out what that means, and to help us put down our own deep roots and to grow our own deeply satisfying lives. Because now, maybe more than ever before, what we choose really matters for our bodies and souls, our families and communities, and for our shared home on this planet. Welcome to Women, Land, and Food. Before I introduce today's guest, here's the backstory. There's an author, poet, and essayist who many of you will know, Wendell Berry. He's renowned for his love of our country, his deep understanding of its land and history, and his profound thinking about the inextricable links between humans and land that are necessary to sustainability, health, and yes, even survival. My earliest experience of Wendell Berry's vast and influential work awakened me to things that were so deeply woven into my life that, like air, it never occurred to me to think about them. My college friend, Hannah, read Berry as one of her primary texts in an intensive study semester. She sent me his poem, Manifesto, The Mad Farmer Liberation Front. I've asked her to read it for us now.
This is Hannah Plum reading Manifesto, The Mad Farmer Liberation Front by Wendell Berry. Love the quick profit, the annual raise, vacation with pay. Want more of everything ready-made. Be afraid to know your neighbors and to die. And you will have a window in your head. Not even your future will be a mystery anymore. Your mind will be punched in a card and shut away in a little drawer. When they want you to buy something, they will call you. When they want you to die for profit, they will let you know. So friends, every day do something that won't compute. Love the Lord, love the world. Work for nothing. Take all you have and be poor. Love someone who doesn't deserve it. Denounce the government and embrace the flag. Hope to live in that free republic for which it stands. Give your approval to all that you cannot understand. Praise ignorance, for what man has not encountered, he has not destroyed. Ask the questions that have no answers. Invest in the millennium. Plant sequoias. Say that your main crop is the forest that you did not plant, that you will not live to harvest. Say that the leaves have harvested when they have rotted into the mold. Call that profit. Prophesy such returns. Put your faith in the 2 inches of humus that will build under the trees every 1,000 years. Listen to carrion. Put your ear close and hear the faint chattering of the songs that are to come. Expect the end of the world. Laugh. Laughter is immeasurable. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. So long as women do not go cheap for power, please women more than men. Ask yourself, will this satisfy a woman satisfied to bear a child? Will this disturb the sleep of a woman near to giving birth? Go with your love to the fields. Lie easy in the shade. Rest your head in her lap. Swear allegiance to what is nighest your thoughts. As soon as the generals and politicos can predict the motions of your mind, lose it. Leave it as a sign to mark the false trail, the way that you didn't go. Be like the fox who makes more tracks than necessary, some in the wrong direction. Practice resurrection.
This poem challenges us to step away from the status quo and look at the systems that shape our existence. It has never felt more important. I can't encourage you enough to engage or re-engage Wendell Berry's work. And if you're wondering where to start with this prolific writer, Nick Offerman wonderfully reads Berry's Unsettling of America on Audible. It was written in the 70s and feels like it was written yesterday or tomorrow. Wendell Berry anticipated so many of the things that our guests have run into on our first 7 episodes. So for our final episode in this first season, I'm so honored that our guest today even exists. While a lot of people, especially farmers, have been influenced by Wendell Berry's work, there's a woman who, through a combination of birth, her own expertise, and most essentially, choice, is carrying his tremendous legacy forward. And that's his daughter, Mary Berry. She started farming in 1981. She had the first certified organic farm in Kentucky, moving from dairy and tobacco to organic veg, pasture-raised poultry, and grass-fed beef. Her children are 9th-generation Kentuckians. And she, about 6 years ago, left the direct work of farming to start the Berry Center, which has expanded to include the Farm and Forest Institute and our Home Place Meets. She is deeply centered in her place of Henry County, Kentucky, and expert in the complex dynamics, from the political to the personal, that so many of our guests have touched on in our season so far. I'm hoping she can help us synthesize what we have encountered. She's taking her father's work to the next phase of offering healing to our land and our relationship to it. Mary, it's an honor to have you with us on Women, Land, and Food. Before we jump in to engage some of the themes we've encountered this season, I'd love to get to know you a bit more as the woman before we talk to you as the expert.
Thank you so much. That was a most generous introduction. I grew up on a farm in Henry County. I farmed first by birth and then by choice. My parents, I think, are still a little surprised that I chose the path that I chose, because mostly what I said to them when I was growing up was, I did not choose to live this way. The other thing I said a lot was, I don't really understand why we have to do everything the hardest way possible. Mm-hmm. So I was not a joy to live with. But on the other hand, I think that probably children have to, it's part of their job is to complain and to figure themselves out.
Sounds like in there you were asking the right questions, though.
I think that I was not, that's giving me more credit than I think I deserved. But I never really disagreed with my parents on some personal issues, maybe how late I could stay out. It's a long time since those issues were between us, but I never did disagree with the things that they believed. And I saw them living out their values every day. My father is now 90. My mother is 88. And I can say that I have never for a moment been disappointed in them.
I have to ask about one thing you just said. Mm-hmm. The hardest way possible. There was a reason for that.
Now, that's something that I've come to see differently than I did certainly when I was a teenager.
So that's how you saw it then.
It was not the hardest way possible. It was the best way to do things.
Yeah. So how do you perceive that?
What has destroyed certainly our agriculture has been cheap and efficient. Things need to be cheap and efficient. And my parents rejected that. My grandparents rejected that. My great-grandparents rejected that.
So it wasn't hard for the sake of hard.
It was hard and it was beautiful. It was for the sake of good work and working together and taking the piece of land they bought when I was 6 and improving it and loving it and living from it. My father and mother have both been fascinated by their little marginal farm on the Kentucky River now for, how old am I? 60 years. Of course, when you're 15 or 16, I didn't want to do what I didn't want to do. I wanted to drink Coke and watch TV.
Right.
And we didn't have Coke or a TV. So what I've come to see is how beautiful their choices have been. Yeah.
Where did you go to school then? And were you still like getting out of Dodge at that point?
No, for all my complaining, I went to public schools in Henry County. We traveled a lot when I was little, but my family
Was that your dad speaking?
That was my father. My father had a Guggenheim, and we spent a year in Europe. He taught early on in New York City, and we lived there for a year. My mother is from Northern California. She was born in Berkeley and raised in Mill Valley. We lived there a year while Daddy went to Stanford. And there was that sort of moving around. Daddy was already writing about Henry County and about farmers and so on, but they hadn't decided yet what their lives were going to be, because at that point, everybody was telling Daddy, who was promising, I mean, his writing was considered good, that to be a writer, he was going to have to live in New York City. And he arrived in New York City. I was, 5. I went to kindergarten in New York City.
It's interesting that part of his life was your life too. These were your emerging, shaping years.
Yeah. And
that's a wide variety of experiences for a child.
It is. But when we came back to Kentucky, really it's my mother who said to my father, when they bought the little farm, the 11 acres that they started with, they were fixing up the old house to be a weekend place. And it was my mother who said, you don't want to live here on the weekends. You want to live here. You want to farm here. And
she saw that in him.
I'm sure it was quite apparent, but my mother,
except to him,
my mother had been raised in a very intellectual, artistic household. She moved a lot. As she said, she was raised in museums. It could have occurred to my father that she might not have been happy living on a little farm on the Kentucky River. And he just told me this not 2 weeks ago when I was sitting with him at the camp where he writes. He said to me then, she's made it all possible. And that is, she's made my work possible, this life possible.
Wow.
She certainly is the reason that my brother Den and I have stayed here. What if she had been discontented? She's an incredible woman.
Okay, so then you went to college.
I did. I went to the University of Kentucky. My parents were not thrilled with that decision, but I made it anyway. I made this decision based on my boyfriend in high school, who you'll just have to understand was really adorable.
Noted.
Yes. Anyway, so I went there, but it was always on my mind that I wanted to come home.
What did you study while you were there?
Geography.
That desire to come home did it shape your choice of a major? Or?
It really didn't. I think I knew I wanted to come home. I knew I wanted to come home and farm. I didn't know if it would be possible. I was subject to the same cultural pressures that everybody else was under, except that I had been raised by my parents and my grandparents. And I was never raised to use the word country as a pejorative. I was, however, raised around people who did. I'm not blaming them. The culture made them feel ashamed. I always wanted to farm. When I came home, I was 22 years old. So I came home to live and to farm, to figure out how to do it. I wanted to do it, and I did it, and we did it. We came home to an economy and a culture that would support good farming. I'm not saying it was easy. It was not easy.
It was hard.
It was hard then. But what could be better? to come home and to live and to farm in the place that you love more than any place in the world. But I want to make it clear, because people often think because someone's been in a place for generations that they have generational land. We did not. We bought a farm. We paid 9% interest because it was the 80s. What we had was the tobacco program, which we can talk about at some point. And I want to make clear from the outset of this conversation that when I talk about the program, I'm talking about the principles of the program, never about tobacco. I'm not advocating for tobacco. What I'm talking about is a program that allowed good, diversified farmers to make a living farming, which the local food movement has just simply left out.
Can you talk a little bit about your uncle and your grandfather and your family's legacy?
My grandfather was John Berry Sr. He was a lawyer and a farmer. He grew up on the farm that we call the home place, which is about 5 miles from where you and I are sitting. He inherited from his father a passion for farming. These people were passionate, good farmers.
And what was their heritage, and how long had they been in the U.S.?
Between my grandmother and my grandfather, their families together, both of whom were from Henry County, our family goes back to the Revolutionary War. So a long time. But the history of agriculture is the history in this country of, I'm assuming that the covering all of the exploitation and our terrible history here. Since Europeans got to this country, it's covered on the first page of The Unsettling of America. Talking about once America was, it has not been settled, it's been colonized. Once we colonized it, there were here and there was good farming. And
well, you know, it's so interesting to me that your dad's writing explained we have a residual guilt that's appropriate. We have to figure that out as white-bodied people. We have the history that we have. We have to figure out how to deal with the implications of that. But the heart of it that I'd never, again, like air, I'd never thought about it this way before, is that when those people came to do those things, their intention was never to stay.
Mobility is our terrible problem. Yes. You asked me about my grandfather. John Berry Sr. was a lawyer and a farmer.
And you called him Big John?
I called him Big John. When I was growing up, we had 3 Johns. My grandfather, he went to college in Georgetown, Kentucky, to a small Baptist college. He did very well. He wanted to come home and farm. He came home to farm. He was born in 1900, by the way. He came home to farm, and there wasn't a living at the farm even then for another family. This gets into the agricultural history of the United States of America. We had a terrible agricultural depression in the late 1800s. My great-grandfather was just getting out from under that when the next one hit. We've achieved parity once in this great nation's history, one time.
When was that?
Oh, I don't remember at the moment, 1928 or something. He was a speaker, orator on behalf of farming, and he got involved in the fledgling Burley tobacco program. Our whole country was participating. Everybody here was a tobacco farmer. A person running for the House of Representatives, Virgil Chapman, heard him speak. And after Big John spoke, he said, I want you to come to Washington with me. I'm running for the House of Representatives, and I think I'm going to win, and I want you to come as my secretary. My grandfather said, I will if I can go to law school. He went to law school, and he went to George Washington. He wrote legislation. He was on the House floor listening to discussions of parity and so on. He was top of his class. While acting as Virgil Chapman's secretary, he was offered a huge job. So he was a likely young white boy in 1927. He was offered this job in Chicago, and he told Mr. Chapman that he would think about it. After a couple of days, he went to Mr. Chapman and said, I'm going home. And he said, do I want to look out my window at grass pastures, or do I want to look at tar paper roofs? I want to go home. And he came home. He brought all that sophistication that he had gotten in D.C. He brought it home. He took the remnants of the Burley Tobacco Program and he put it to use for his place and his people. His papers are incredible. What is government for? He could tell you. It's to protect these little people. He didn't mean that in a pejorative sense. So he and his friends made the Burley Co-op work, and it worked for decades. And it meant that people moved from farm tenancy into farm ownership. It meant that a highly diversified, good farming paid because only the least erodible land was plowed. Around it was perennial agriculture. Quota was based on the history of tobacco production, but also the topography of farms. It also was colorblind. Black farmers moved because the quotas moved with the farms. They couldn't be separated from them. They couldn't be withheld. So unlike so much of agriculture, and obviously the USDA's history with Black farmers is just unbelievable. Also small white farmers.
Right.
Small anything. But anyway, so he came home and he put every opportunity that he had taken advantage of and put to good use, he put to use for his people. Now, what if I've had so many goddamn conversations with college and university presidents? Like, what if your people stayed home? What if you educated them to do good where they are instead of making a fortune? What if you did that? Mobility is our terrible problem. I thought for a long time it was upward mobility, so education for upward mobility, but now I think it's mobility, period. People are moving all the time.
Which is the first step of the Industrial Revolution, right? We started going, like with the telegraph, we started going faster than people could move. And then railroads right in there. You started going faster than you could get in a day on a horse.
Yes. I do think that our work at the Berry Center is focused on hanging on to what we still have. So that's an inventory. What do we still have here? We have some good farmers left. We have some agrarian culture left. So let's build from that. What worries me about this conversation that we're having right now about white people getting to this country is if we're talking about especially white farmers in a place like Henry County, Kentucky, we're talking about privileged people. Let's think hard about that word. We in our home place meat are not working with any farmer that has inherited a farm, not one.
Oh, interesting.
Most of them have been to college. They've come home to farm like I did. One family's moved in here. They're paying for farms. And the terrible divide in our country is getting worse by saying to these people who are working so hard to pay for a farm, to raise children, to live a decent life, to be community members, and pay off land, to call them privileged is a little bit of a leap. And I think possibly absurd. And I think that we need to look hard at this idea. This is another thing I think the local food movement has left out, is the idea of the inventory. This means our work has to be place to place to place, done by people who have some idea of where they are, some idea of what they have to work with, and with some intention to stay. I don't think being from here makes me, and to have stayed here makes me special in any way.
It does make you different.
It makes me different, maybe, but I love it here. The sky looks different to me here. So I will live with the mistakes. I'll live with the good the Berry Center does, and I'll live with the mistakes it makes. I'm in it for the long haul. We have one given life, one to live. What do we got to do with it? How are we going to live it? What can be done right in front of us that needs to be done?
As will become clear in later episodes, I really love our bank. Mascoma Bank was one of the first great discoveries we made when we moved to Vermont. Mascoma is a community bank supporting local businesses, nonprofit organizations, and customers around Vermont and New Hampshire. From everyday checking and savings products to mortgages and commercial lending, Mascoma Bank helps community members navigate all their financial challenges. They are also serious about personal engagement. You walk into a branch and they know your name. It's the type of customer service that we know and expect in northern New England, and they deliver. I'm proud and grateful that Mascoma Bank is supporting the inaugural season of Women, Land, and Food. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
At Hula, work feels different. Whether you're an entrepreneur, team member, or remote professional, you'll find the space to focus, connect, and do your best work. It's a place where people meet, ideas spark, and new ventures take root. That's exactly how Women, Land, and Food began, right at Hula's Innovation Campus and Collaborative Workspace. Their first episodes were recorded at Hula, and now the podcast has launched its first full season. We're proud to sponsor this final episode of Season 1, engaging the heritage of Wendell Berry through the game-changing work of his daughter, Mary Berry. That's the magic of Hula, collaborative communities in action. Come visit us Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or check us out at hulalakeside.com, where you can take a virtual tour and learn more about opportunities to engage.
I'm hoping you can guide our understanding in particular areas that have come up as we've talked to our guests this season. I know these are huge and historically complex and dynamic realities, but I'm going to ask you to reach for the fat crayons. The economics of farming don't work. Our farmers this season all have off-farm jobs as well as farming, or they develop value add to their products. They struggle for capital. They have a not-for-profit mission like education on top of farming, or they're employed on well-funded farms they'll never own. I've heard you say in an interview that the free market doesn't work for farmers. But we all eat 3 meals a day in this country, and we see the prices of food going up and up. So what is happening in that gap between what farmers are living and what we as consumers are living? Because we're so disconnected from that, I don't think the majority of people have any sense of the mechanics or dynamics behind this or how we got to here.
I've said that what has been valued in industrial agriculture is cheap and efficient. And so we need to be cheap and it needs to be efficient. So it's not seen as efficient to have 40 small dairies in Henry County. It is seen by the economy to be efficient to have one 5,000 cow dairy that is vertically integrated and owned by Walmart. So they own absolutely everything in that vertically integrated system.
So the fact that it's bad for the cows and
well, it's bad for everybody.
That comes out at the end is bad for our nutrition.
It's bad for the environment. It's bad culturally. It's bad. It's killed small communities. And that is just one example, but the example holds for almost everything that we're eating now. When the weapons of war were turned from war to agriculture after World War II, it became the stated goal of the USDA to get rid of farmers. We had too many farmers. It was stated that way.
So basically, industrialists made a lot of money in the war. The war ended, and they had all these capabilities they were used to making.
They had chemicals.
So they turned them to agriculture.
Big
machines.
So we needed to use those big, you couldn't have a bunch of content, healthy, small farmers refusing to buy the big equipment, using the chemicals. They had no need for the chemicals.
How'd they get them to buy them?
It's interesting. They worked at it. They stated they may set an intention, which is what I've done here, just for another reason. They set an intention, made a commitment, and
stuck it out.
Went for it. They used everything they could use Gene Logsdon, an agricultural writer and even wrote for the Farm Journal for a while, I think, a friend of my father's, says in one of his books, 4-H was started because the USDA extension said, we're not going to get the farmers. And we're not going to get this generation of farmers, so we'll get the kids.
Every good propaganda system does that.
Yeah.
Everyone from the beginning.
Let me just say once more, read The Unsettling of America. It's going to be better than anything I say here. But they came at it from every direction. Make country people feel bad about themselves, ashamed of themselves, hicks, rednecks. Imagine saying slurs like that in this time about, well, anybody. Yeah. But you can still say it. People are still thinking, if we need some farmers, we'll get them. You don't need a college degree. You don't need any particular expertise. We'll just get them.
The last podcast we recorded was with two young farmers who are just early in their careers, and they're just talking about the lifetime of learning they'll never catch up to. And people they know they've been farming for 50 years don't know it.
One of my favorite memories of being very young in our first tobacco crop that we raised ourselves, an older farmer who at that point, I was 22, so he was probably 40 and I thought he was ancient, came and helped us every day. When he could. And I thought he was coming because we were so much fun. I was cooking good meals for hands. I guess they were good. It took me decades to see what he was doing. He was coming to help us, keep us from making mistakes we didn't have to make if he was there to help us. We were surrounded by that kind of thing. We had a culture that supported us. Young people today, we owe them a lot more than we've given them. And we haven't even been willing as older people to be honest about what we ought to be giving them, I don't think.
Okay, I have two questions to just dive into this a tiny bit more. One is, you talk about the local food movement and how that's insufficient.
It hasn't deepened.
So we're just talking about connoisseurs of organic vegetables, right? We're just talking about people who can afford to pay for the good stuff.
I don't know. The local food movement, in my mind, I go back to the opening of Chez Panisse in the 70s by our friend, Alice Waters. I'm not stating that as factual. I'm just saying it just seems to me that it became a buzz. I remember when I was a teenager going with farmers in Henry County to take produce to a farm-to-table restaurant. Didn't even have that phrase then, but called Alfalfa's in Lexington. The local food movement kept us farming. My husband started the first CSA in Kentucky. We benefited from the local food movement and grateful for it. But it never deepened. It never deepened into any kind of cultural change. It didn't change the culture of agriculture. It didn't slow down the loss of farmland or farmers.
Yeah, they get bigger, get
It
out.
never did. It's had all the weaknesses of most movements. It never got serious about agriculture. The culture
at a systemic level.
Yes. What does it take for farmers to afford to farm well? How can we become a culture that will support good farming? It's never deepened into that. And so what it did was just hand our language over to industrial organic. So what's happened is that there's the local food movement, entrepreneurial efforts, farmers markets, CSAs, and so on, all of which are good, all of which should be supported. But if we want to build a population of people who can farm, who can use land well, who can leave it better than they found it, who might fill grocery store shelves, should it ever occur to us that we might need a local supply of anything, we're going to have to think about something between the farmers and the marketplace. And that's why the Burley program is the example that I use for everything.
So you had the Burley tobacco program. Is there anything in the way?
We can't
Okay.
replicate it.
Of course.
We have no friends in high places. My grandfather did. He'd been in Washington. It's a Depression era program.
Mm-hmm.
There was some understanding for once and for a while that we needed farmers. We'd had the Dust Bowl, we'd had the Depression, we'd had all of this tragedy. And the result for a while was that we needed good farmers. I just want your listeners and everyone else to understand when we talk about the tobacco program, tobacco wasn't always considered what it is now. I mean, I listen to old radio programs sometimes. It was recommended by doctors.
It got a lot of soldiers through a lot of wars.
It was good for the nerves, probably is, as a matter of fact. And it's very interesting to me, this question of tobacco. It just points out absurdities in our culture.
Mm-hmm.
We did lose the tobacco program. I think we lost it because Mitch McConnell and his devotion to the free market. The tobacco companies never liked the program. They wanted to be able to get cheap tobacco anywhere they could. I mean, this has been the story of rural America. Our food, fiber, minerals, everything has been stolen at the lowest possible price, if not actually stolen. That's been the history. So for a while, the tobacco program gave farmers an asking price. This is the price. So health, though, was the bat. It was what we were
Bludgeoned with.
Thank you for the word. I can come up with it. Do you know what's replaced in Henry County and all over the 8-state Burley Belt? You know what's replaced tobacco?
No.
Corn and soybeans. If we are going to talk about health, we didn't get rid of tobacco
And drop in a healthful.
and drop in some organic vegetables in case anybody thinks we did, because it didn't happen. What we did was lose a lot of farmers and farmland.
And can this program that you've created be replicated
Yes.
and scaled?
Absolutely.
What are the hallmarks of the program?
The hallmarks of the program are production control in order to maintain parity, meaning farmers get back cost of production and keep a living wage. The values of the program are to support farming, keeping ground covered, good animal welfare. Our cattle are on the cattle that are processed for roast beef are cattle that are on their mother's milk and grass until they hit weaning weight. Berry beef is on grass out in pasture. It's their entire lives. Good animal welfare. No antibiotics, steroids, hormones. That's a given. What's left of good farming in Kentucky, in Henry County in particular, is cattle production. That's where the passionate good farming still can thrive. And we're trying to make it thrive.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to get these good farmers out of a boom and bust economy.
So you set a price.
We set a price. We contract with the farmers at the beginning of each year. We'll have the meeting in January. We're going to set a floor, which is how the tobacco program worked. So you set a floor so you don't have a race to the bottom and you fluctuate above the floor.
Okay.
Up and down. So this keeps the farmers solvent. It is replicable. I will make a plug for a nonprofit. If we had not had a nonprofit to support it, getting on its feet, paying one person, then two, a living wage to do the major work to get it started and then to run it, we would not still have it today. Some of our farmers, they're beginning to have an economic base to plan their economic year. That's what this is. That's what we had. That's what I had when I started out. I was raising tobacco and going to farmers markets, but I could plan a year.
And that's been the challenge of farming forever, is you can't control for all the things that go into your year end. Rain.
No,
hail,
you're dependent
flooding,
on the weather.
all of it.
Yeah.
So you're mitigating that variable,
Mm-hmm.
and you're doing it by building through not-for-profit the infrastructure that it takes.
The plan is that this program, Our Home Place Me, will stand on its own.
Okay.
I'd like the Our Home Place Me to outlast the Berry Center. My father says about the unsettling of America, its tragedy is that it's still relevant. I don't foresee that in my lifetime, the work of the Berry Center will not be relevant. There's just too much. We've got to build from the ground up so much. But the hope is that at some point, there's no need.
So many not-for-profits, and I've worked with them and done strategic planning with them. And if you ask the question, like, what would the world look like if your work was done? They turn their heads and they're like, what do you mean? If you don't plan to eliminate the need for being here, then you're just part of the system. And you are planning to eliminate the need for you to be here.
Yeah.
Which is
and furthermore, I know how it looks because I was raised in it.
And you know how far we've come away from that and what those factors are.
That's one thing about Kentucky right now is that we've got exactly 20 years to see what happens when an economy is pulled out from under good farming.
What happens in 20 years?
You lose farmland faster than any other state. You lose farmers. The average age of farmers now in Kentucky is 65 or 66. The average age, I think, in the country of beginning farmers is something like 48. As a person who's farmed all my life, I can tell you the difference between farming when you're young and farming when you're not.
That's one of the reasons this podcast happened, is we realized that there was no way we could farm. We're old. Older. I prefer older.
My husband farms full time, but he farms very differently. He's been doing it all his life. He's tough as nails. That's something that needs to be talked about, and it's hard to talk about it, and it's hard to get people to understand it because I don't know how to make it relatable. But there is something about being raised in something, doing it every day. I tell you one thing I miss in a big way. When we were farming the way we used to farm, some things got done. You do them again the next year, but at some point, all the chickens were processed and in the cooler. Something was picked. All the hay was in the barn. And yeah, this nonprofit Berry Center business, I'm never done.
There's no winter.
No, there's no winter. That's right.
Whoa.
That's exactly right.
Okay, we're going to do our second deep dive.
Oh, good Lord.
This will be easier. What are the cultural implications of reconnecting with land? We center this podcast around women because women spend 93% of food dollars in this country, and every woman I know is concerned that we are what we eat. But we're wildly disconnected from we are what our food eats, with what happens on land, with what about soil makes for good food. And I've heard you say that it's not a conversation about agriculture, but about culture. Your dad said that too. Can you tie some of these loose ends together for us?
Part of what I wish could happen is that people would stop being satisfied with easy answers or no answer.
Like, that's too complicated, move on.
For instance, farmers markets can be wonderful places. They ought to be supported. I went to them for years to sell. They're also, I've talked about the problem of cheap and efficient, but you talk about inefficient. You spend so much time getting ready to go, you have no real control over what you're going to come home with.
And what do you do with all that comes home?
Well, that's a good question. I think that there are people who figured it out, maybe with food banks and so on. I think there are different answers to that. I know when I started the Berry Center and started traveling to speak, it seemed to me that one of the things that I had to do over and over and still need to do often, although I feel like it's gotten a little better, is to tell people that what they think is happening is not happening. I had $100 for every time somebody has said one of these things to me. I understand exactly what you're talking about. My grandfather was a farmer. The farmers are happy at the farmers market. We have so many farm-to-table restaurants in our city. They're just everywhere. Those kinds of assumptions that they have they've put just the information that's available together, and they've come up with a hypothesis that is completely wrong.
That this is helping farmers, that this is good for people.
It's not building a population of good farmers. It's just simply not. We cannot expect our closest city, Louisville, Kentucky, cannot expect to manage a crisis well with food from its surrounding countryside. It's no closer now than it was 30 years ago. 30 years ago, my father and others started what became Louisville Farm to Table. And we have all worked hard to establish an actual connection between the city of Louisville and the countryside around it. And all we've got to show for that are something like 20-something farm markets. Please go to them. Please support them. But 24 farm markets, that's about it. We have worked with schools, hospitals, restaurants, so on and so forth, with the mayor's office through 3 administrations, and nothing has been institutionalized. For instance, with schools, there'll be a food service person who really wants local, will begin to get some momentum. That person will retire, go away for some reason, starts all over again, if it starts all over again. Yeah. So what I'm saying is we need to work toward real connections that take.
Mary, what would those look like?
Our home place meat is our attempt to do that.
And you're doing that.
And we're doing it. And it would work for anything farmers can produce, from timber to tobacco. It will be hard and it will be long.
And it has to start with the farmers.
This is what's been left out for 30 years in our work with Louisville and other places as well, is an understanding that that's where we've got to start.
With the farmers.
With the farmers. What's going to work for the farmers? I'm not talking about being absurd.
You're talking about sustainability.
Like just shoveling money out, which is amazing to think of that even. But I'm talking about what does it cost to raise tomatoes in Kentucky? What does it cost? We don't know. I tried when I started the Berry Center and knew we were going to work on parity. We have more cattle in Kentucky than any state east of the Mississippi, and they're out on pasture. The average cattle herd here is 27 mother cows. This is small farming.
That's really small.
And they're outside. I tried to get help from land-grant universities on what is parity and how much does it cost to get a calf from birth to market. They don't know. They don't know. Because those aren't the numbers anybody's valued. The cheap and efficient numbers are what we need to know. How do you get it cheap to market? Then you have the disconnect between the women who are spending, did you say 93% of our food dollars, of the food dollars? Then you have, I don't know how many of that percentage are worried about the food they're giving to their families. I'd say a healthy percent.
Sure. But we don't know what to worry about, because we can go to the grocery store and we don't know where to go beyond that. Like you said,
for all this choice, there's no choice.
Exactly. There's no food in the food. First of all, in the food that's in the grocery store, there's no nutrition in it. And then the disconnect between where it's grown and how to get it to your table. I remember my husband's mother saying when he was little, she would spend almost a whole Saturday going farm to farm to farm in the summer, just buying food for the week. But it took a day. She didn't really have a day, but she did in this country. It's in New Jersey.
I think that agrarianism is something that's important to talk about. I consider myself an agrarian, and I think the health of the land always has to be first. The health of the land from which everything we need comes. There was recently an editorial by, I believe, David Brooks in the New York Times talking about what we need to do to be a better country, and he talked about manufacturing and all the things that we've lost that we need back. Never mentioned the land economy. Never once. And when I'm going to use this big they never do. It's as if everything we need, all these raw materials come from nothing.
What's most fascinating to me about that and how disconnected we have to be from ourselves is we all eat, most people in this country eat 3 meals a day.
What we need is a little humility. And this is what I would say to David Brooks. There's plenty of reason for you, sir, to be more humble. And the writing is Elon Muskish. It's like we, with our big brains, we're going to get ourselves out of this mess. I don't believe that's true.
Got to get our hands dirty.
What we're going to have to do is build back from the ground.
Yeah.
And this is just wonderful news because we can do that. It's just going to take a long time.
Since we don't have enough time, it may be the crisis can force our hand.
We need to not think that way. We need to not think that way. We need to do what's right in front of us to do, step by step. The work reveals itself, the problems that need to be solved. We cannot run around thinking, oh my God, we don't have time, because that puts us in the hands of Elon Musk and Bill Gates and those people, because they want the quick solutions. The latest debacle in Kentucky was something called App Harvest. Huge greenhouses from the Netherlands were going by some brainiac from Lexington named Jonathan Webb, who's going to put these huge greenhouses on top of the removed mountaintops in Appalachia. And he was going to supply the eastern seaboard with all the tomatoes they need, and then all the lettuces, and then all the berries. He didn't get that far. He started with tomatoes. He raised something like $88 million. First of all, the huge greenhouses couldn't go on the flattened mountaintops because they were too unstable. And then he starts on this huge idea. The only reference I've heard our sitting governor make to agriculture he's a two-termer, he's a Democrat. The only reference I've heard him make to agriculture very seriously was App Harvest. He was all for it. This was the idea. We're going to avoid all these messy people, all this dirt, all this, and we're going to bypass all that and raise all the food. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Okay, maybe worry a little.
It'll be fine. Turns out, for one thing, the margins on a tomato, what does it cost? We don't know. $88 million gone.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, in The Unsettling of America, Daddy talks about this crisis that we're in. That was published in 1977. It's a crisis of culture. To exist in this economy and feel good.
It's almost impossible.
It should be impossible, actually. It's Daddy's calling this economy now the second original sin. But he talks about it being a crisis of character also. I absolutely believe that the truth will make you free. I do believe that's true. And I think I think people are miserable and unhappy and scared and paranoid and voting for crazy people and all this stuff because they're running from the truth of what we're going to have to do here. We're going to have to not all live like we live. We're not all going to be whatever passes for middle-class Americans now. I tell young farmers this all the time. You've got to really think about your expectations. We've lived in this, all of us have been born and raised in this culture. I was lucky enough to be raised by Wendell and Tanya. But if you think you're going to farm and you're going to get some kind of equivalent of vacations with pay, you're going to get days off, you're going to be your children are going to have every lesson known to man. If you're going to think that trips for your children to see the monuments in DC are absolutely essential, you're not going to make it. What you're going to have to do is what we all have to do, is to figure out where we are.
And be there.
Love it. Learn everything you can know about it. This will take you a lifetime. A lifetime. And then from there begins to be the possibility of doing the right thing that's right in front of you to do. You don't need permission. You don't have to wait. You can just do it. So this begins, I think this is just a kind of awakening. So you can stop just accepting, if you're on the left, you accept certain things. So the right takes everything away and tells you just should be grateful to be an American. The left takes it away and gives you programs in exchange.
There you go.
My friend Wes Jackson says if you take an economy out from under people and replace it with basketball courts, people there aren't going to be grateful. Yeah. I just think we need to really begin to try to figure out where we are and what we can do and do it.
One of the takeaways I had from your dad's book was the idea that it's in manifesto. The corporate interest is to reduce humans to a buying unit or a sales unit. Every child needs a cell phone. We don't have a house phone in the home anymore. Everybody's got their own. And when we get down to that 1-to-1 and we've exploited and exhausted that, then we just have to make people want more things they don't need and tap them more frequently. And his point was, anytime you pull back from that loop and do something for yourself, instead of purchasing entertainment, you play a board game. Instead of going out to eat or having a fast food meal, you actually buy ingredients and assemble them yourself. That you are pulling back a little bit of that humanness that puts you in direct interaction with your own life, really, instead of outsourcing it to someone in an exchange unit.
Well,
and that was really helpful because then we can start getting creative and imaginative about where can we pull back. And
I speak as a very fortunate person. I think what I'm trying to get to is to really live. Really wake up and live a life. Food should be delicious. It should be raised by people who love what they're doing. The culture of the United States of America has made that impossible for almost everyone. People ought to be able to follow a calling. They ought to feel like they ought to be able to do the work that they're born to do. And wonderfully, I don't think that means everybody will want to paint or play an instrument or write poetry or make films or do podcasts. I think a lot of people want to do work. They want to, that's work. Forgive that.
No, we understand that.
Do real work for themselves and for others.
I think what you're pointing to is that there's a satisfaction there that is missing from the majority.
There's satisfaction and there's this emphasis on, I think happiness, I think there's something deeper than happiness, which is joy. And I don't think you get either one of those until you get to contentment. And I think what we're talking about is an attempt to become content. What have we been given?
It's hard to get to contentment when you're constantly to want more.
It's impossible to get to contentment. And then you want more, and then you spend more money, then you have less money, then you have probably more debt. We're caught. We're all caught. I don't speak as a person outside of it.
This. We can pull back from this. Maybe not completely, maybe not everybody, but we can start and it can grow.
We really have to check our expectations. What is it we think it takes to live a good life? I really have never had a lot of trouble with hope. But since starting the Berry Center, I feel we can make the changes we need to make. It's been amazing to me working with students or working with the farmers in our program, people in our reading groups, with just a little care. A little help, people can heal,
You're restoring those lost connections.
And it's happened, and it's unaccountable, really. It's just amazing how quickly people can open up and become neighbors again and make these connections again. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. For a woman who is facing down the realities, it's heartening to see that all your energy is going to build the solutions. We're going to do a rapid wrap up. Quick, short answer, just right from your gut.
All right.
How do you describe family right now?
Granddaughters.
What most prepared you for your current work? That may be redundant. Is there one thing you'd point to? Just
Stories from my family.
there you go. What do you dream for yourself in the world?
To be able to keep doing this. I would love to dream that I would see not needing to do this, but I won't.
What Google terms should someone search to learn more about what we've talked about?
Like the Berry Center? I don't
The
know.
Berry Center. There's the first one.
Do I need another?
Agrarian.
Agrarian? Maybe.
What's your favorite food?
My mother's bourbon balls.
Okay, is that a holiday treat?
Mhm.
Say more.
That's just delicious.
Pecans, bourbon.
Yeah. Sugar,
I hear you.
chocolate. My father says every Christmas, your mother used the good bourbon in the bourbon balls.
How
And I'll
dare
say, that's right, Wendell.
What's your favorite animal?
Horse.
Because?
I love them because they're beautiful.
What's your favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving.
Because?
No presents. If you'd asked me another time of year, I might have come up with another story. I'm considering starting a fifth program here called Stop Christmas.
What's your favorite way to celebrate?
I love quiet evenings. I love dinners with our family.
How do you take care of yourself so you can keep going?
That's a good question. I have a very nice husband, but that's not the answer. I don't know. I don't have an answer.
We'll get back to you on that then.
Let me think. I like to read, and I do love to read. I've pretty much sworn off tragic agricultural literature, unless Daddy wrote it, and it's not tragic because it's Dad. I like British mysteries from the teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, where everybody smoked and drank all the time and nobody ever said anything about it. I don't know. I don't think I do.
We're going to buy you a candle and some bath salts.
I do like to take baths. Do you want to put that in there?
Sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've heard some interesting things from farmers. What honor about your farm brings you the most joy or delight?
It's beautiful. I just love the way our little old tenant house sits in the middle of it. I just think it's beautiful. It's lovely to go there. There are places on our farm, because it's very hilly, that you can't see anything other than our farm. That's nice.
Mary, you've been so generous with your time.
It's been fun. I pity the person who's going to have to make this cohesive.
We'll get it done. Mary, thank you again so much for making time to talk to us. It's been an honor to hear from your deep expertise, not only with your father's legacy, but with your own contribution in making his wisdom accessible to this next generation.
Thank you so much.
Women, Land, and Food is a Sister Camp production. Our producers are Elizabeth Brightly and Christina Samuelewski. Our studio engineer is John Toda, and we recorded at his studio, Syntax in Motion, and at Star Farm Studio, both in Burlington, Vermont. Our audio engineer is Bridger Dunnigan. Our lead for ads, sponsors, and partnerships is Georgie Rubens. Our 2025 summer intern is Marin Warshay, and our research assistant is Phoebe Woodall. Our music composer is Mike Coulter, who shared variations on his original piece called Seeing from his Confidence Head studio in Santa Monica, California. Land is our middle name, and our journey together follows our connection to land through food that grounds us and sources our lives. We take seriously that our Vermont stories are lived on the unceded tribal home of the Abenaki people, Our home on this edge of Lake Champlain is known to be an ancient place of gathering and exchange that was stewarded for thousands of years by generations of Abenaki before our European ancestors broke their connection to their lives on this land. We are working to understand the results of this oppression that we have inherited and to participate in all we can restore. We encourage you, too, on your journey to discover and restore your own varied and complex connections to your land and heritage.